overtake. You are to do so if the way is clear, and once you complete that maneuver, you are to get back to the left lane and remain there. We have persons anticipating the light. You have those that are anticipating the green, and even before the green comes on, they are off. And you have others who are beating the amber in order to go by as well. And I should tell you this, red means you are to stop, amber means you are to prepare to stop, and green means you are to go if the way is clear.
And remember, always wear your seatbelt.
Thanks so much for joining us for CVM News at noon. It's Wednesday, June 25, 2025. I'm Curlin Brown. And we begin with this update. Wisynco has been acquitted of charges it breached the Wildlife Protection Act. Now, the matter, which was brought to a close on Monday, would have been a year old in October. We sought additional clarity from the Director of Public Prosecution, the DPP, Paula Llewellyn.
So it's case closed?
Case closed. Let us leave it at that.
The conclusion to a case first brought before the St. Catherine Parish Court in October 2024 against Wisynco Limited regarding the alleged breach of Section 11 of the Wildlife Protection Act. The charge resulted from a matter which surfaced when the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, responded to reports of a pipeline leakage into the Rio Cobre, also in St. Catherine, and the discovery of dead fish on the bank of the river. A disparity arose after a review leading to the conclusion by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution the Crown did not have a viable case. The Act states, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, every person who causes or knowingly permits to flow or puts or knowingly permits to be put, whether directly or indirectly, into any harbour, river, stream, canal, lagoon or estuary containing fish, any trade effluent or industrial waste or sewage or noxious or polluting matter shall be guilty of an offence against this section and shall, upon conviction before a parish judge, be liable to a fine not exceeding $100,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years or both such fine and imprisonment.
In terms of our review, we found that no samples of water had been taken by NEPA from the river beneath, where the fluid had been seen gushing into the river from the pipeline, which went from Wisynco on one side of the river to the other side of the river. So we were not in a position to prove that this was trade effluent or industrial waste or sewage or noxious or polluting matter.
Bluntly put, the substance was not scientifically identified as a matter of law, as a substance capable or falling within the definition of those listed under the Act. Additionally, the NEPA officers admitting to forming a view the company was unaware the pipeline was leaking fluid into the river. The DPP further explains the prosecution was not in a position to evidentially prove the character and nature.
You can't make assumptions, you can't use suspicion, and you can't speculate. That is way below the standard required to prove a case.
The DPP stresses this is a teachable moment for all.
Because guess what? It is in the public interest that there is robust adherence to the laws when it comes to making sure that we don't have these environmental breaches. And if you have environmental breaches, that there is accountability. Accountability through the courts, or it helps to cause these companies to say prevention is better than cure.
Curlin Brown.
The wage dispute between the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, the JCTU, and the Ministry of Finance continues to gather traction. Finance Minister Favour Williams recently announced a salary increase for public sector workers. But the JCTU President, St. Patrice Ennis, says the minister has misrepresented the facts.
Finance Minister Favour Williams announced public sector workers could expect an average increase of 7.5% through the payment of up to 3 increments this fiscal year. The minister says the payments agreed with the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions, the JCTU, represent a significant shift from previous policy. But in response to CVM News, JCTU President St. Patrice Ennis dismisses the minister's claims, arguing the payments are neither new nor the results of recent negotiations.
It is our position that the minister misspoke. The minister is conflating the issues because the payment of increment now is not a new benefit. This is a payment for a delayed entitlement. Specifically, it is payment for increment in the years 2022 to 2023, 2023 to 2024, 2024 to 2025.
Mr. Ennis says the decision to restore the increments was made under former Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark, and the current payments should not be misrepresented as a recent victory or new agreement.
Therefore, it cannot be viewed as a response to the JCTU claim for improvement in salaries for the years 25 to 26 and for the period 26 to 27. As those are for years going forward, and the payment of increment is for retrospective years. Also, the payment of increment for those retrospective years would not address persons who just came on into the service now, as they would not be getting any salary increase, or for persons who the government deemed to be using the nomenclature casual and who did not rest against a post. Those workers, or for workers who are in a new ministry, the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. And so it would not address those individuals or those persons.
The union maintains its members remain frustrated by the lack of formal dialogue and stands by its demand for an urgent ministerial meeting before June 25. It's still unclear whether the latest developments will ease the growing tension or escalate the standoff.
Now, the Jamaica Teachers Association is also expressing dissatisfaction with the Finance Ministry about delayed payments for increments and retroactive allowances, with President of the Jamaica Association of Principals for Secondary Schools, JAPS, Linville Wright, speaking out about what he terms 0% increase.
Well, in the recent discussions about salary, I'm seeing where it's 0% in the first year. And I think that it is heartless, especially when it comes down to teachers. In all fairness, if principals were to be fair about it, principals have been dealt with, far better. And we have to admit that. I have no issues admitting that. But the teachers are the people who have the heavy lifting work to do in the education system. And when you look at them and you're telling them in a time when children have become far more anxious, far more difficult, far more recalcitrant, just delinquent, and you're asking them to be the creche of society where they're taking care of these children, and you're giving them 0%. It makes no sense. It's an insult.
The Factories Corporation of Jamaica, the FCJ, has completed Phase 1 of the Garmex Free Zone redevelopment and expansion project. The $1.3 billion project was fully funded by the FCJ. Akeem Oret tells us more.
Garmex Free Zone is one of the most in-demand locations for commercial activity. The new development is said to be generating more than $3 million per annum in revenue.
126,000 square feet of space comprising 31 units, 3 warehouses, 6 mixed-use units, and 22 mini warehouses for micro, small and medium-sized businesses.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says these revenues will be reinvested to facilitate the other stages of expansion.
In just over 2 years since the new facilities became operational, they have generated more than $340 million in rental income. These revenues will be reinvested to finance additional phases of expansion.
With Phase 1 being completed, there are already plans for Phase 2 to be done by August and 3 by September.
Today's ribbon cutting marks not only the formal opening of Phase 1, but the launching pad for Phases 2 and 3, which together will represent nearly 500,000 square feet of new commercial and industrial space. Phase 2, at an estimated cost of $3.2 billion, will feature a new Marcus Garvey Drive entrance, a new headquarters for the FCJ.
Meanwhile, at the recent groundbreaking of the MJS Industrial and Technology Park in St. Catherine, a US $50 million investment, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says investors were initially discouraged from entering the area because of the high cost of ensuring safety would outweigh any potential profits. He also says crime and violence continue to negatively impact Jamaica's economy and hold back national progress, stressing the country cannot be indifferent when it comes to tackling gangs, as a firm and united response is essential. Describing gang members as no friends of the community, the Prime Minister says they have done lasting damage to Spanish Town, holding it back for decades. Noting once peace is established, multiple investors are ready to step in and drive development.
Why is it that no one else before now actually saw the vision for this old textile mill? It was because the perception was created that this area was not safe. And the cost that it would take from the private individual to make this place safe would make the business unprofitable. Do you see the weight that crime and violence places on our economic development? Do you see how it suppresses us? And do you see why we cannot be ambivalent in once and for all dealing with the gangs that are in the business of violence. They are not our friends. They mean us no good. We cannot be ambivalent about it. And they have held down Spanish Town for decades. I say to you today, if we achieve peace in Spanish Town, there would be a rushing sound of investors in.
And we'll continue with the CVM News Afternoon right after this.
That's always close. Supermed Family of Pharmacies is where you go for everything you need. From your morning routine to life's biggest moments, Supermed Family of Pharmacies is always by your side. Whether it's prescriptions or household essentials, trust the care that's close to home. Super happy, super healthy, Supermed.
The time is brought to you by Ford Territory.
Power in great moments. If you have financial needs, Chris and Charles will fix them for you. Power in great moments since 1992. Oh, we have it all. Power in great moments. Relax, you got Chris and Charles. Oh, we have it all. When you think alone, think Chris and Charles.
Welcome back. In her contribution to the sectoral debate on Tuesday at the House of Representatives, Sports Minister Olivia Babsy-Grange spoke to the power of culture and sport in transforming communities that were once known for violence into spaces of peace and security. She points to several areas that have undergone significant positive changes as a result of targeted programs and investments by her ministry aimed at engaging youth and restoring hope.
We have been able to transform communities that had a reputation for violence into models of peace, safety, and security. Thanks to Prime Minister Andrew Holness's administration's management of the economy, many businesses, small and large, have been enabled to make investments in central St. Catherine that have created new opportunities and blessed the lives of the constituents.
Minister Grange is now encouraging community members to continue embracing these initiatives and advise that more projects are in the pipeline to build on the successes achieved so far. President of the Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, Todd Edgton Newman, is sounding the alarm over what he describes as unacceptable working conditions facing taxi operators in the parish. Newman, who was speaking during a recent outreach initiative in the area, says the lack of parking and limited access to welfare support continue to frustrate operators who play a vital role in the transportation sector.
St. Thomas need conditions of how the operators operate in St. Thomas need to be addressed. Parking facility is a key component of our business and it's yet to be seen in the parish of St. Thomas. I went around to one of the transport centers, I think they call it the Hope Road Transportation Center. It's a disgrace, and we allow commuters and operators to be operating in that space. I'm wet because what? There's no bus shed, right? And I'm hoping that the minister and the member of parliament and the mayor, because the parish council, the municipal corporation, it's their responsibility to deal with things like parking facilities. It is none. It is nowhere in eastern St. Thomas, right? A little thing is in the western end. But let me tell you something. the untidiness of the drains in the so-called street where they call a bus park. It cannot work.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton is firm in his belief the governing Jamaica Labour Party should be credited for its management of several health crises that threatened the sector. He was speaking on CVM's Lead Story Prime.
The Jamaica Labour Party over the last 9 years has led and provided leadership to this country when faced with significant national crises around public health. We inherited the tail end of ZICV, which actually resulted in the change of a health minister. Fenton was literally dismissed and another came in. So they weren't doing too well with that. We then had to face CHICV first, then Zika, or ZICV, 1 year of a dengue outbreak, the dreaded COVID-19 for 2+ nearly 3 years. And when you look at, by all accounts, the country did well, or